The day that changed everything began like any other adventure in my life. It was 1999. I was 40 years old, a practicing orthopedic surgeon with a loving family. My name is C Neal, and though I considered myself a Christian, I approached my faith with the clinical skepticism that had served me well in my medical career. I believed in God, yes, but in the distant intellectual way many of us do. Until the waters of Chile changed everything. I remember the excitement as our kayaking group approached the waterfall on that fateful day. The current was stronger than anticipated, but I was confident in my abilities. Then came the moment that divides my life into before and after. My kayak capsized and plunged over the waterfall. I was pinned beneath the powerful cascade, trapped underwater with no way to free myself. Panic should have overwhelmed me. Fear should have consumed my thoughts. But something extraordinary happened instead. After the initial struggle, I felt an unusual calm wash over me. As the minutes passed, 15, perhaps 30 minutes underwater, I felt my spirit gently break free from my physical body. The sensation defies medical explanation. I, a doctor trained in science and evidence, experienced my consciousness separating from my drowning body. I could see my lifeless form below me, yet I felt more alive than I ever had before. The physical pain vanished. The fear disappeared. In its place came a profound peace and an awareness that transcended anything I had ever known. Then came the light, not harsh or blinding, but warm and inviting. And as I moved toward it, I realized I wasn't alone. I was being greeted, welcomed, embraced by beings of light. Among them, unmistakably, was Jesus. How did I know it was him? There was no introduction needed, no formal announcement. The recognition was immediate and complete, a soul-deep knowing that defies rational explanation. In his presence, I experienced perfect love, perfect acceptance, perfect understanding. I was being held and comforted and being reassured that everything was fine, regardless of whether I lived or died, is how I've tried to explain it since. But words fall short. How do you describe colors to someone who has never seen? How do you explain music to someone who has never heard? The experience was beyond language, beyond the limitations of our physical senses. Jesus took me through what I can only describe as a life review. But this wasn't the cliché flash of moments before death that we've all heard about. This was profound and transformative. I saw my life not just through my eyes, but through the impact I had on others. Every kindness, every harsh word, every missed opportunity, all viewed through the lens of perfect love, not judgment. Small moments I had forgotten gained new significance. The time I comforted a stranger in a hospital waiting room. The patient whose hand I held when medical interventions failed. The times I chose patience with my children when exhaustion tempted impatience. But also the times I was self-absorbed, the times pride guided my decisions, the times I chose convenience over compassion. Yet there was no condemnation in this review, only gentle understanding and the profound realization that love is the only thing that truly matters. Not accomplishments, not status, not wealth, just love. During this encounter, I somehow understood that it wasn't my time to stay. There was more for me to do on earth. I had a mission to complete, a purpose unfulfilled. Though part of me longed to remain in that perfect peace, I knew I needed to return. My reluctance must have been evident because I was reassured that this separation was temporary. "This is just a brief goodbye," the message came, not in words, but in understanding. "You will return here when your work is finished." When I regained consciousness, I was being resuscitated on the riverbank. My fellow kayakers had managed to free my body from beneath the waterfall after I had been submerged for what should have been a fatal duration. Medical science cannot explain how I survived without brain damage after being underwater for so long, but I know what happened. The physical recovery that followed was difficult. My body had endured trauma that would take time to heal. But the spiritual awakening that accompanied my near-death experience transformed everything about how I view life, death, and what matters most. Before my experience, I approached faith with intellectual caution. As a doctor, I valued evidence, data, measurable outcomes. My spirituality was compartmentalized, separate from my scientific understanding of the world. But after coming back, I realized that faith and science aren't opposing forces. They're different languages describing the same reality. The skeptic in me tried to rationalize what had happened. Perhaps it was oxygen deprivation causing hallucinations. Maybe my brain, in its final moments, created comforting images. But the clarity of the experience, the specific details, the transformative nature of what I learned, none of these fit neatly into scientific explanations. My perspective on death completely changed. I no longer fear it. How could I, having experienced what waits beyond? Death is not an ending, but a transition, a doorway to something more beautiful than we can imagine. This doesn't mean I'm eager to leave this life. Quite the opposite. My experience gave me a deeper appreciation for the gift of each day and the importance of how we spend our time here. The purpose of life became clearer to me. We're here to love, to learn, to grow, to help others. Everything else, career achievements, material possessions, social status, these are just temporary assignments, not our true purpose. Since my return, I've felt compelled to share my story, not to convince, but to offer hope. I wrote "To Heaven and Back," not because I sought attention or acclaim, but because I believe these experiences contain wisdom that can comfort those who grieve and guide those who seek meaning. Some ask if I've changed my medical practice because of what happened. The answer is both no and yes. I still practice evidence-based medicine. I still value science and research, but I now see my patients more holistically, not just as bodies to heal, but as souls on a journey. I listen differently when they speak of their fears. I understand differently when they face mortality. There are moments, even now years later, when something will trigger the vivid memory of that experience. The quality of light on water, a particular piece of music, the feeling of complete peace during prayer. In those moments, I'm reminded that the veil between this world and the next is thinner than we imagine. What I experienced in those minutes underwater has sustained me through challenges that followed, personal losses, professional setbacks, the ordinary difficulties of human life. When hardship comes, I remember being held in perfect love, and it gives me strength. If you're listening to this and feeling skeptical, I understand. Before it happened to me, I might have questioned someone else's similar account. All I can say is that there are realities beyond what our limited human perspective can grasp. There are dimensions of existence that transcend our physical understanding. My experience isn't unique. Thousands across cultures, religions, and time periods have reported similar journeys beyond the threshold of death. While details may differ, the core elements remain consistent. The peace, the light, the love, the sense of purpose revealed. As I approach my late 60s now, I look back on that day in Chile not as a tragedy narrowly averted, but as the greatest gift. It pulled back the curtain, if only briefly, on the greater reality that awaits us all. It showed me that what we do here matters, that love is the essence of existence, and that we are never, ever alone. I don't know what your beliefs are. I don't know what challenges you face, but I do know this. There is more to our existence than what we can see, touch, and measure. And in that reality beyond our senses, perfect love awaits. That is my story. That is my truth. And in sharing it, I hope to offer not just an interesting account, but a reminder that even in our darkest waters, we are held in a love beyond understanding.